What's up, my wizards? It's Dev. SBMTG, we like magic. Yes, I'm alive, by the way, first of all. It's been a while since I've seen you guys. That's because I haven't had power in 4 days, and we just found out that it's looking like another maybe 3 or 4 days before we get power again. So, with that in mind, coming to you from my hotel room right now. We went out and got a hotel room with apparently good Wi-Fi, so I could do this. There are a couple of caveats, though. I'm going to talk about some Ixalan spoilers, but I actually don't have my editing rig at all. Like, I don't have any editing software whatsoever on me, just a laptop and a webcam and my snowball mic. So I'm going to talk about some magic cards, but I can't do anything picture-in-picture or text-wise. So I'm going to leave links to every card that I talk about in this video in the description. This is going to be a link in the description heavy video. So check down there for a treasure trove of things. I'm also not going to be able to do like any edits again whatsoever. So forgive me for like transitions between cards and stuff like that. But without further ado, we have some things to talk about, like a lot, because I've missed a few days here. And there's a good like 20 cards that I want to just quickly go through. Again, I can't edit anything, so I don't really have the time to like talk about all of these things in as much depth as I'd like to. But once we get back to the house, we have power, I'll do a whole video really discussing in length some of the things that I've missed. But for now, let's talk about some Ixalan stuff. Sort of going from most recent to least recent, I guess. And the first thing I want to talk about is Perilous Voyage. And if you haven't seen this, this is essentially disperse that can't hit your stuff. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and but not yours. Return target opponent's non-land permanent to their owner's hand. And then if that permanent was converted mana cost 2 or less, you scry 2. I actually think this is one of the better disperses that's come out in a really long time. You know, there were a few in standard just recently, including disperse itself. I don't like that this can't save your own stuff. I think that's kind of a major point off for it. But at the same time, being able to scry 2 is especially great, especially early game when you're using this as a tempo piece. I think scry 2 is actually fantastic. And I think it's got like maybe a chance in some other formats, but I really doubt it. I've heard people talk about this card in Modern, and I don't think it's going to happen, but the ability to like bounce Tarmogoyf and scry 2 is at least worth talking about. But I don't think when we have a bunch of 1 and 2 mana removal that just kills Tarmogoyf outright, that this is quite where it's at as far as Modern goes. It makes the standard play because, again, just scrying 2 for 2 mana and removing a permanent on tempo is not a bad deal. So I'm interested in it in at least that aspect of it. But I kind of do hate that it can't save your dudes. But let's move on here. I know the transitions are going to be so weird. I can't do jump cuts. But Axis of Mortality is the next thing I want to talk about. If you haven't seen this yet, this is the 6 mana white enchantment that basically lets you switch 2 players' life totals during your upkeep every single turn. Which is kind of really neat in Commander. You can like really mess with people if you're playing a 4 or even 8 player game, you know. You switch any 2 opponents' life totals, that's hilarious. But you can also obviously use this to switch, you know, just in a 2-person game, your life total and your opponent's life total. I think it's 6 mana. It's a little dumb. I don't know. I mean, it's not worship. Let me just put it that way. It's not worship. It's not a Gideon emblem. Like, it's not going to keep you alive forever, especially once, you know, both yours and your opponent's life totals start becoming similar. There's really a lot of, you know, no return for what you've spent on and invested in this card. So I'm just not really sure that 6 mana is where I want to be, but I do think the card is hilarious in Commander. And in Standard, like, it might be better than a lot of us are judging it as, but I really doubt it. 6 mana is... that's so much, you guys. So let's talk about Gourd Scavenger. This card has been spoiled, I think, before today, but I just saw it today. I don't know if I've skipped over it in the last few days. When I do get a chance to check spoilers, I get to use the internet for like 5 minutes a day the last few days. It has not been long, just enough to send out like 1 tweet, check the spoilers for that day, and be done. So I guess I missed Gourd Scavenger, but it's essentially a 3 mana dinosaur. It's 2 and a green. It's a 3/2. And when it enters the battlefield or it attacks, you exile a card from a graveyard. And if the card you exile was a creature, you gain 2 life. If it's a non-creature card that you exiled, you put it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. The Scavenger does. So in a sense, essentially becomes a 4/3 in that case. I think it's actually having a Scavenging Ooze type creature in Standard is really good right now. And we have a lot of graveyard hate. I think Sentinel Totem, the 1 mana artifact that just like wipes graveyards, and you don't even have to pay any extra mana to activate it. I think that is probably going to be like the premier kill all graveyard strategies card, but this is just another, you know, nail in the coffin. I guess that's almost a pun, but still. It's just another nail in the coffin right here. And this would probably go good in dinosaur sideboards. I mean, it's definitely not in the main deck, from what I can tell. And I wish it was a +1/+1 counter. That would be insane. But I do like that you get this ability on ETB and attacks. That's a lot of chances to screw with their graveyard or, you know, gain life off of your own creatures that are in the graveyard. I just think this card has a lot of play, but it's all out of the sideboard. I'm interested to see if the dinosaur sideboard has room for it. That's one aspect of that deck I haven't worked on too much is the board. We're trying to get the main deck right. So I'm not really sure with the 3 colors we're working with if this can fit into the sideboard, but it probably can. And since it's on theme, it might be better than something like Sentinel Totem or any of the other things, Scavenger Grounds, Crook of Condemnation, you know. Just since it's on theme, it might be a way better choice, but I'm not sure that it's going to be good enough against Godfarer's Gifts decks to just go in alone and win that matchup. So we'll see. Card looks interesting. Card looks better than good. What's next? Fleet Swallower is next. Fleet Swallower is hilarious. First of all, love the art. Hate that I can't show it to you right here. But I like giant sea monsters, basically. But this thing costs like 7 mana. It's 5 and 2 blue for a fish. It's the creature type we have right now. But it's like a 6/6. That's kind of cool. But when it attacks, you traumatize your opponent. They flip the top half of their library into their graveyard. So milling for half of their graveyard or their library on attacks is pretty good. It's probably not good enough, though, like in Godfarer's Gift decks and stuff, ramp decks. I just don't know that it's good enough, even with Fraying Sanity in the format. And yeah, that wins the game. But you have to get him in play. You have to usually wait a turn to attack with him. I like that he doesn't have to do combat damage. That's kind of cool, but still, they have so much time to do something about him, and I'm just not really sure. He's not Ulamog. He's certainly not Ulamog, but he's a really cool card. Anytime you get a traumatize on a stick, you got to at least bring it up. So he's awesome. There's also Double Volley. I get to talk about this card. I really wish I was able to do picture-in-picture. I'm sorry about that. But Double Volley is basically 1 and 2 red. It's a 3-mana sorcery, and it deals 3 damage to a target, a la Lightning Bolt. But it has Raid. If you've attacked with a creature that turn, you can pay 5 mana. It's like 3 and 2 red, and you can bring it back from your graveyard to your hand. So people that are old enough to remember Hammer of Bogarden, it's Hammer time again. It's been like 15 or so years since it was Hammer time, but it is again. Hammer of Bogarden was a really, really important card. Back when Mirage was around, like really $15 important card. That was in back then dollars. So it's gotten less and less relevant as time has gone on, but it's still really cool to have it back. You know, 3 damage to a target kind of sucks at sorcery speed, but still 3 to a target is fine. And if you can recast it once in a game, I think that you've definitely gotten enough value out of it. You know, anytime you can get back a removal spell and cast it again, that's usually at least worth looking at. So I'm not sure Hammer of Bogarden is as good as it used to be. But at least this is, well, it's not easier. The casting, the activation cost on the raid is easier than Hammer of Bogarden as far as mana. But Hammer of Bogarden, if I remember correctly, you do it like anytime you wanted to. So it's not probably quite as good as Hammer. But it's still awesome to have in Standard. And it's very, very easy to attack with a creature. I can even see there being situations where you attack with a guy knowing it's going to die. Just run your 1/1 in or whatever. Just so you can recast your Hammer. I'm going to keep calling it Hammer. Double Volley. So this might actually be worth, you know, 1 or 2 of play in Standard the way Hammer was. It was rarely a 4 of. So I'm at least interested to see if this makes any waves, especially in an upcoming burn deck. We have good curve now for burn. We have Shock, Lightning Strike, now this, which we can recast, but we have to be able to attack to, which burn doesn't necessarily want to do, but it's at least worth taking a look at. So I'm interested about the new Hammer. Can't wait to say it's Hammer time again. And no one will know what you're talking about, but you will. You will. There's also, oh God, Kinjali's Collar. This is probably the card that I have the most love-hate relationship with out of all the spoilers that I've missed. Kinjali's Collar is just 1 white mana for like a 0/3 human cleric, I think it is. And dinosaur spells cost you 1 less to cast. Now, the reason that I have a problem with this, I mean, first of all, the card is awesome. Right? It's just a 1 mana ramper dude for your dinosaurs. Cast Rampaging Raptors on turn 2 or whatever. All that sounds fantastic. We're definitely going to see play in the dinosaur deck, but that's the problem, is that it almost certainly has to see play in the dinosaur deck. And before now, that deck was looking like a red-green deck that splashed white for literally Gishath and maybe cast out of the sideboard, and not much else. You know, Kinjali Sunwing, perhaps. The new Thalia thing makes their guys come into play tapped. And not really a whole lot of white outside of that, if we could help it. But now it appears as though we have a creature that forces us to reliably get white mana on turn 1. We can do that with Inspiring Vantage, but aside from that, it's going to be tough. I mean, we might have to work Ether Hub into the deck. We're going to play more planes than we initially thought we were going to have to play. So I don't know how much I like that this card exists. I like the effects of it. I think that a 1-mana ramper is something I've wanted since Elvish Mystic was out of the format. This one is very specific, though, obviously. But the Dinosaurs deck wants it. I mean, it has to play a 3 or 4 of this guy. So we're going to have to find a way to, again, reliably produce white mana on turn 1. That takes our turn 1 white sources from, like, literally almost 0 in that deck, like 4 Inspiring Vantage, to a necessary, like, 11 untapped white sources on turn 1. That's going to be really, really hard. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But I'm just really interested in and sort of maddened by the logistics that this card presents. So that's all I got to say about it for now, but we'll definitely talk more about it when it comes time to do the Dinosaurs deck. Field of Ruin, the new Wasteland Ghost Quarter thing. Let's talk about that for a second. If you haven't seen Field of Ruin yet, it taps for a colorless. It's a land. And you can pay 2 and tap it and sacrifice it to destroy a non-basic that an opponent controls, and then each player searches their library for a basic, puts into play, and then shuffles. First of all, the basic that each player puts into play does not come into play tapped, as you would think that it would. So that's at least worth noticing. If you want to be really weird in a roundabout way, you can like fix your mana that way and kill one of their non-basics. That's cool. Also note that it's each player. So in a commander game, you know, everyone gets an untapped basic at that moment. And you and your opponent are the only ones that are actually down a land in that situation, or you and the guy you're targeting. So this is a really interesting card in Commander, but obviously this is at least looking to be decent in real constructed play. I don't know about Modern, because Modern already has really good options as far as lands like these. Excuse me. Sorry about that. It's the stuff I usually get to cut out, but anyway. Modern probably has better stuff than this. You know, they have Ghost Quarter, you know, but they don't have Wasteland. But this maybe in Modern. Maybe. There's probably a lot of things people have said about it that I have not seen yet. A lot of these cards have interactions I likely have not been able to read yet. I know, this is my job. I should think about them myself. But this card is just obviously powerful looking. To me at least. Anything that looks kind of like a Ghost Quarter or a Wasteland, you definitely have to read twice and think about. Because that's always been a really, really powerful thing to have. So, and especially in this upcoming format, non-basics are still going to be a huge thing, even just in Standard. So this is probably going to be a fairly important card that also sort of fixes your mana if you want it to. I don't know. Like, just the ability to have land destruction on a land is good. Historically, that is very good. So I'm interested in this. Let's see what else is next. Sword Point Diplomacy. First of all, that's a great name for a card. Let me just say that. This is what we get instead of like Painful Truths. But I'm not sure that it's as good as Painful Truths. Here's the thing. 3 mana, you look at the top 3 cards of your library. You reveal the top 3 cards of your library to all players. And then an opponent essentially gets to pay 3 life for each card they don't want you to then draw, in that case. So they'd have to pay 9 life for you to not get any of those 3 cards. They have to pay 6 life for you to only get 1 card, and so forth and so on. They pay 3 life, you get 2. They don't pay any life, you get all 3 cards. Sounds like a really good deal, but here's the thing. I think a lot of players are going to be willing to pay the 3 life for you to not get the card you want the most out of that deal. And I think that that isn't enough to make the card straight up bad, but I definitely think that it's a major point against it in this case. Just the fact that they can say, oh, pay 3 life and you can't have the card you were digging for in the first place, that gives the opponent an awful lot of agency. Now, if they want to pay 6 life and keep you from not getting 2 amazing cards, that's on them. That's an awful lot of life to have to lose. And I don't think anybody's going to pay the 9 life, but at that point you paid 3 to draw a card, and it's just not great. And your opponent knows what you've drawn at that point too. So I'm just not really sold that this is awesome yet. But usually Black has a card like this that at least sees some kind of play. I'm just not sure that you know, SPD is the card this time. Again, the ability to just keep you from getting the thing that you wanted in the first place, the reason you're playing a card advantage spell in your deck, is probably enough to keep this card from seeing play. But we'll see. We'll see. What else? Rigging Runner. This is, I love alliteration. Rigging Runner actually looks pretty sweet to me. This is just a 1 red mana Goblin Pirate. It's a 1/1, but it's got Raid and First Strike, by the way. That's really relevant. It's got First Strike and Raid, and the Raid is if you attack with a guy this turn, then this comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it. That is actually kind of sweet, especially if you got like Bomat Courier or something, or really almost any other 1-drop. You know, if you had a deck that was really, really dense with 1-drops, you could very easily make this a 1 mana 2/2 on turn 2 and have mana for another 1-drop or Pump Spell or Lightning Bolt or whatever you're doing, you know. The only problem is that this can't be a turn 1 2-power thing. That is kind of dumb. Just a little bit. Maybe they'll print like a 0/1 haste for 0. They won't do that. But in any case. That's also the stuff I usually cut out. But I am really attracted to this card at first glance. I think the First Strike really helps put it over the top against other aggressive decks. You know, if you're in a sort of mirror kind of match against another really low to the ground fast deck, then the First Strike is going to matter an awful lot. You know, especially with all the 1 and 2 toughness creatures that aggro is looking to play in the next standard. I really actually like a card like this an awful lot, and it's another thing that sort of pushes Pirates towards red. You know, we've got the 2 mana thing that gets like +1/+1 for each other attacking pirate. I think it's actually really good and goes pretty well with a card like this too. You can probably build a very low to the ground, like just black-red pirates deck at this point. So I'm interested to see what this card can do, because it could see play outside of pirates. This could just be a card in goblins. Although again, I'm pretty sure goblins may have better 1 mana options than this in older formats. But it's still a really, really nice looking card that I expect at least some noise out of. Let me just put it that way. This is a fine aggro creature. This is a very good aggro creature. What's next? Oh, Raider's Wake. I get to talk about this too. I'm excited to talk about all these. I've been waiting all week. But Raider's Wake is essentially a 4 mana enchantment, and it's 3 and a black. And whenever an opponent discards, they lose 2 life. We needed that. But it's also got more text on it. It's Raid. If you attack with a guy this turn, then during your end step, your opponent discards a card. So you can force them to lose 2 life if you attack with a guy and lose resources. It actually looks really good if you can resolve it against control decks, first of all. You know, they're not going to have a whole lot of removal against this enchantment, first of all, in the next standard. I guess they could cast out or something like that, but there's really not a whole lot of options for enchantment removal, all things considered. So if you can resolve it and get it under counter spells, it actually looks awesome, because you can easily attack with a guy. Making them discard cards against control deck is going to be really good. And this is a renewable source of discard, you know, that they're going to lose life off. That's sweet. And it's also, I think, if you're going to play a 4 mana enchantment, I think it's a better choice for standard discard decks than Torment of Scarabs. We've already built a mono black discard deck where Torment of Scarabs was sort of our version of the rack, but this easily replaces it as far as I'm concerned. We have to more reliably attack with creatures, but we've got things like Dream Stealer and other stuff in that deck. You know, Kaisel Freebooter now, another new pirate thing. So that could work out too, you know. I am a huge fan of this card. I think that it looks kind of casual. I don't think it's going to see a whole lot of higher level play. But as far as like a casual discard deck, I think we've been looking for an option like this that just straight up, you lose life when you discard, you know. And it's whenever they discard 8 cards, if you hit them with, you know, anything that makes them discard multiple cards, they'll take 2 for each one. So I think this is actually really, really good. Again, not good enough to really make the cut in competitive play. I think it's a little bit too slow for that, all things considered. But as far as, you know, a little bit more casual budget or F&M play even, I think that we could make discard go a little over the top with a card like this. I think it's definitely better than Torment of Scarabs at the very least. So I'm excited. I'm excited to try it out. What's next? Ooh, Ruthless Knave. This is a kind of a neat card. It's 3 mana. That's 2 and a black. If I'm not, yeah, it's a 3/2 orc pirate. And you can pay 2 and a black and sack a guy to get 2 treasures. And then you can sack 3 treasures to draw a card. I mean, of course, you can sack the treasures for mana too. I just think this is really neat. I don't think it replaces Tireless Tracker, even though it has similar stats and mana costs and all that. I haven't seen anybody compare it to Tracker yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if people have. Let me just put it that way, because it looks like a trackery card, but I don't know that it's as good, especially having to sack a guy. And I don't know if it says sacrifice another creature. I should get that straight, but if it can sack itself, that might be okay. But in any case, I think that ramping is nice. Like, you could technically, when you untap on turn 5, you could have like 7 mana if I'm doing that right. So maybe, but I doubt it. I guess if you could sack like 2 guys over the course of a game, and you're getting 4 extra mana the next turn you untap. So, well, you know what I mean. The turn that you actually use this ability, you're not getting any actual mana value out of it. They've tuned it that way, you know. But the next turn you untap, you'll be up on mana. So I think that I like the design of the card. I'm just not sure that it's smooth enough. You know, the card doesn't look sleek. It looks a little bit clunky in and of itself. I'm just not really... I don't know that I'm feeling it, but I kind of am. This is a card I'm very, very on the fence about. A creature that can create mana advantage for you is pretty good, and we could turn it into an upside that we have to sacrifice creatures. And, of course, the creature with the draw a card ability on it is pretty good, too, but we'll see about sacking 3 treasures to draw a card. I think I might rather have the mana, but, you know, drawing a card is something that makes this a little bit more like Tireless Tracker, so there's that. But this is another one. I want you guys to sort of share how you feel about this one, more so than some of these other cards, and I want you to tell me how you feel about all of them. But this one I'm really ambivalent about. I'm not really sure what the verdict is. If I had to grade it, I would not even know where to begin, because the card could be very powerful, or it could be not good in any way, you know? So let me know how you feel about Ruthless Knave down there in the comments. But on to Direfleet Ravager. This is an exciting card for some people. It's 5 mana, 3 and 2 black. For a 4/4 Menace Death Touch. And yeah, and when it enters the battlefield, each player loses a third of their life total rounded up. That's a Suicide Black. It looks like a card for that. Although Suicide Black never played like 5 drops. The game should be over before you get to turn 5. But I will say this looks like a limited all-star, man. 5 mana, 4/4 Menace Death Touch. You have to block it with 2 guys, and those 2 guys both die, basically. So you can create 2-for-1s. With this right here. So that's awesome, and you're going to take a lot of life off of their life total. A lot of life off of yours too, but again, if anybody remembers Suicide Black, we don't care about our life total. We only care about theirs. So something like this is cool. It kind of reminds me of Gary, you know, deals damage to them when it enters play. It's 5 mana. But it attacks a lot better than Gary ever did. Great Merchant of Asphodel. So I'm interested in the card. I'm not sure it's going to make any splash. I think 5 mana is so much. For, you know, it enters the battlefield and does a thing. It definitely does something when it enters play, but at 5 mana, I just think that we probably have better options at this point. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people are freaking out about how amazing this card is and I just haven't seen it yet, but I do think that things like Registar Alpha, for instance, probably much better 5 mana options in the upcoming standard. There's also, let's see, where are we at? Oh, I do like its creature type, an Orc Pirate Wizard. That's super sweet. Now we're at, I just wanted to bring this up real quick. Charging Monstrosaur. First of all, Monstrosaur is dumb. You could have done better than that. A monster dinosaur. Come on. But in any case, this is just a 5 mana, 5/5 with haste and trample. I just want to point out for limited, that's crazy. I don't really have much more to say about this card, but a 5 mana, 5/5 haste trample. Yeah, you get that in limited. Play that. Next is Captivating Crew. Is another thing, if you get it in limited, you play it. But this one's rare, so it's a little bit harder to get. But it's a 4 mana, 4/3, if I'm not mistaken, and you pay 3 in a red. It's a creature. You pay 3 in a red, and you can threaten a creature, essentially. Hijack a creature. Just basically, you take control of a creature on their side of the battlefield, bring it over to yours, untap it, give it haste, and then give it back at end of turn. Having this ability on a stick, especially a 4 mana, 4/3 body, that's not a bad body in limited already. Is really insane. Like, we love mana sinks in limited, and we don't mind threatened effects some of the time, but having a threatened effect on a stick is crazy. You get this in limited, you will absolutely play this like every single time. I don't know that it's good enough for standard, but in limited, yeah, it's unbelievable. River Sneak is next. I'm almost done. I'm on number 15 of 21 right here. River Sneak is 2 mana. It's 1 in a blue, and it's a merfolk, and it's unblockable. It can't be blocked. And whenever a merfolk enters the battlefield, I think that's what it is. Let me just double check that it's not whenever you cast a merfolk spell. Yeah, it's whenever a merfolk enters the battlefield. It gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So you can very easily make this a 2 mana 2/2 that's unblockable. But you can also relatively easily make it a 2 mana 3/3 that's unblockable on some turns, especially the early turns, which is when you're looking to do the most damage with this anyway. I think this also goes kind of well with the 3 mana enchantment that always puts a merfolk with hexproof into play every turn. The problem with that, though, is if you play it on curve, then you don't get any bonus on turn 3, the turn after you play this unblockable merfolk. It's a little clunky, but maybe later on in the game you start creating merfolk every turn and this guy's unblockable. Maybe, but it just seems so casual. Merfolk is not seeming like the best tribe. Let me just say that. Right now, at least. Sorry. Had to do that. You could probably tell. But in any case, I think maybe we'll have to wait until Rivals of Ixalan for merfolk to really start shining, because some of these are looking underwhelming. Although I will say, possible, 2 mana, 2/2, or 3/3 unblockable is not the worst thing in the world at all. And if you could actually build a deck in draft that has a bunch of merfolk in it, this is definitely worth playing. This is a very aggressive creature for the first few turns of the game, again. And then after that, it's at least, if it's not removed, it's going to deal 1 damage every turn for you, which is not bad right there either, really. Makeshift Munitions is next. Makeshift Munitions is 2 mana, it's 1 and a red. And you can sacrifice, you pay 1 and sacrifice an artifact or a creature to deal 1 damage to a target, a creature or a player. I think this is great. It's not impact trimmers. And it might not even replace Ravenous Intruder in this deck. I mean, there's obviously like a red artifact deck that wants to like put artifacts in the graveyard, get them back with Pia's Revolution or Scrap Trawler. That deck exists. It's usually used Ravenous Intruder as its sort of engine to get stuff back and forth from the graveyard to your hand to play and all that. But this looks good to me. I hate that you have to pay a mana. If it was just sacrifice an artifact or creature, there'd be a million infinite combos that might break it. So there's, that's bad. But I guess they had to pay the mana. But you don't have to pay a mana when you sack an artifact to Intruder, so whatever. But in any case, I think this actually has some play in it. Again, I think it's a little bit too slow and clunky and cute for construct, like real, like mainstream high-level constructed play. But I do think, again, on a budget level, this card has an awful lot of promise to it, especially with all the aforementioned cards in the format. We got Pia's Revolution, Scrap Trawler. We can do an awful lot with artifacts and red right now to keep sort of a never-ending sort of loop going. And this card could be a big part of that, and I love that we don't have to like attack with Ravenous Intruder. It's a lot harder to remove than an Intruder is, so that's awesome about it too. Just, I think that maybe we could do some work with this. I'm going to try to, because the card is captivating. I was reading the word captivating, that's why it came to mind. Up next is Vicious Conquistador. I love that name. This is just a black mana for a 1/2 vampire soldier. That might be relevant. And whenever it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life. And we've seen stuff like this before. But I do like that it is a 1 mana, 1 power vampire that is essentially a 2 power vampire. And there's nothing your opponent can do about that until they kill it. It's always going to deal at least 1 point of damage when it swings in, regardless of whether it's blocked or whatever. So I think that's kind of cool. Black needed a 2 power, 1 mana vampire if it was going to even try to keep up. And this is close enough to that I like it. If we're going to build vampires, it's almost certainly in the deck. But there's really not much else to say about it. It's not super exciting. So we'll move on to Imperial Lancer. This is just a 1/1 human knight for a white mana. And if you control a dinosaur, it gets double strike. I don't think this is very relevant, but it's at least worth pointing out. A 1 mana 1/1 is not great, but if you have a dino, getting double strike is at least kind of cool, so I wanted to bring the card up. Again, not much more to say about it. I don't think that it's going to see any standard play at all. But in Limited, you might want to keep your mind open. If you're playing the Dinosaurs deck, you usually don't like 1-drops, but if you're playing the Dinos deck and you have any sort of auras that buff your guys or any sort of enchantments, global enchantments that buff, well, I haven't said global enchantments since 1999, but still, enchantments that buff all your dudes or whatever, this could maybe be worth a look. I just like that the card exists, but I'm not sure how great it is. Let me just put it that way. I'm on number 19 here. This is Dowsing Dagger. This is one of those transform an artifact into a land things. And I would imagine people are saying this is bad, but I actually really like to look at this. Dowsing Dagger is a 2 mana equipment that equips for 2 mana and gives the creature +2/+1. Now, when Dowsing Dagger enters the battlefield, your opponent gets, or an opponent, that's important for Commander, gets 2/0/2 plant tokens with Defender. But again, you can just give that to any player and then not attack them, because when the creature deals combat damage to a player that Dowsing Dagger is equipped to, you then transform Dowsing Dagger into, I think it's Lost Veil. That's right. It's a land that you can tap for 3 mana of any one color. So that's unbelievable. Again, in Commander, this is great because you can give any old player 2 0/2 plant tokens, and then next turn, or that turn even, just attack into a guy with no creatures. So that seems like it'd be pretty good, and you could flip this like as early as turn 3. It seems like pretty easily. So that seems great. You could even do this in standard with unblockable creatures. We just saw a 2-mana 1/1 unblockable, and who even cares? If you play a Merfolk, who cares? Because you can just get it through unblocked and transform your Dowsing Dagger. Same thing with Key to the City. Key to the City is still going to be in standard. That makes creatures go unblocked. So boom, you can easily transform into a Lost Veil, and Lost Veil looks incredibly good. So I'm not going to count this card out. I actually don't think this card is bad necessarily, and it's not even going to be too hard to just attack through those plant tokens, even with a guy that's not unblockable. So I'm really interested to see if this card does anything. At the end, I think that maybe it's just, it might not be worth the slots. It may be too unreliable in flipping it. And if you devote slots to it, you have to devote slots to things like Key to the City or unblockable guys. Most of the time you would. I would imagine. So I just don't know if it's going to be worth all the effort in the end, but it might be. So I've got my eye on this card. I want to know if it's good or not. Same thing with Legion's Landing. I think this card has a very good chance of being one of the better transform enchantment things in the entire set. Legion's Landing is just 1 white mana, and when it's a legendary enchantment. And when it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 white vampire guy with lifelink. And when you've attacked with 3 creatures in 1 turn, then you can transform into the land. It's Adanto First Fort. Yeah, that's what it is. You can tap it for a white, or you can pay 2 and a white and tap it to create another 1/1 white vampire guy with lifelink. So it's not too hard at all. This is actually the best 1-drop for the vampire deck. Like, far and away, very easily, you might even play 4, the best 1-drop for the vampire deck. I really like the cut of this thing's jib, man. It's not too hard to transform at all. Once it does transform, you're guaranteed on turns where you can't do anything else, at least. You're guaranteed a lifelink guy. That's going to be really good. Doesn't seem too hard to flip against almost anything, to be honest. It's going to be really hard for control decks to do anything about it once it is flipped over. It's just, there's a lot of play in this card, and it's a 1-mana 1/1 lifelink if nothing else. So, which again is going to be fine in those vampires decks. So I just don't see a reason that this won't see play. Like, maybe vampires isn't good enough, but even if vampires isn't good enough, this might still see play just outside of the vampires deck. Because this looks really, not like amazing or anything, but this definitely looks playable. This is one of the only like guaranteed this will be playable. Whether or not it ends up seeing play depends on whether or not it finds a home. But just based on sheer power level, yeah, this card looks very attractive. So can't wait to try that thing out. Just, yes, please. Oh, and let's point this out too. One more thing before I go on is, even if you play one while you have one out, then yeah, you'll sacrifice the enchantment, but you'll still get a 1/1 vampire. So you'll still have one of these enchantments out. It won't matter. You just play another one if you want a 1/1 white vampire. Could happen, especially if you're trying to get enough vampires to attack early game and transform the one you do have. So at least there's that. Moving on. This is a card that 2 people have specifically asked me about. This is Spell Swindle right here, and we're almost done. This is the last card that I want to talk about in depth. It's 5 mana, 3 and 2 blue, and it counters a spell. And you get X treasure tokens, where X is equal to the countered spell's converted mana cost. That seems very good, even for 5 mana. 5 mana counters don't usually see a whole lot of play, although Confirmed Suspicions actually did occasionally see like one of play every now and again. Like, Confirmed Suspicions was not a super hot card, but it did see some play here and there. And I think this is probably a lot better than Confirmed Suspicions. You know, it's not mana drain. Obviously, I still can't get over it. It's been a week almost now. I still can't get over that mana drain's being like reprinted basically in Iconic Masters. This is not mana drain though, but it's probably fair. And in some ways, the text box is better than mana drain, because you get to use that mana whenever you want to. It can be mana of any color. It gives you a bunch of permanents. It gives you a bunch of artifacts, which is going to be really important for some decks. It gives you a bunch of artifacts for the Mechanized Production deck or the Revel in Riches deck. And honestly, this could just be game over. For, you know what I mean? If you're playing Mechanized Production and you have to get, 8 treasure tokens, then just countering like a 3 or 4 mana spell puts you way over the top, to where not only do you deny an important play for them, but you win the game off of this counter spell. So maybe maybe. We'll definitely have to see. I think it might be worth one or two of play. Especially, I mean, the fact that you just got a bunch of tokens laying around, a bunch of treasures laying around after that, that's just insane for control decks. That much extra mana and that much automatic fixing is going to be amazing for a control deck. So I would not be surprised if control was willing to play a one or maybe even two of Spell Swindle. The card looks fantastic to me. Again, 5-mana counters are not usually great, historically at least. But just like Confirmed Suspicions, this could see the odd one or two of every now and again, and I really hope it does. The card looks pretty powerful to me. Can't wait to test it out because, again, I mean, if you can counter something that's like 5 mana, then I'm not saying you win the game, but you have nothing to worry about mana-wise for the rest of the game at that point. So probably worth taking a look at. And then the last thing that I want to talk about whatsoever was just Wedge's spoiler card. I'm not going to talk about it in depth other than to say that it's hilarious. It's Vance's blasting cannons. I'll leave you a link in the description to his spoiler video. Actually, if you haven't seen this card yet, because the card's hilarious. It's sort of an outpost siege that you can flip over and do even cooler stuff with. The card looks hilarious. And it's like goblins blasting a hole in the side of a volcano and then like living there. It's just the flavor of it's hilarious too. So check that out. It's in the description. And I have a buddy named Vance, by the way, that I had to tag on Facebook. It's Vance's blasting cannon. He was happy about that. But in any case, the card looks great. Not sure it's going to see much standard play. That's all I'll really say about it. But if you want to see Wedge be really excited about a card, go check out the description, click it, and look at his video. But that's all I've got to say, for now at least. And I'm glad you guys are indulging me. Thanks for watching if you're still here. I know that there's no picture-in-picture, there's no fun jump cuts, there's no real jokes or anything. This time I'm just kind of talking. But it's been a rough few days, and I missed talking about Magic. I missed you guys. And I really hate that half of spoiler season is cut off from me because of the power issues. And I've had a lot to say so far about all those issues, and I can make a whole video about that. But hopefully we'll get power restored over at the house as soon as we can, and I can put actual real videos of substance out for all of you. And by the time it comes time to do pre-release guide and deck techs, we will almost guaranteed have power back. So I wouldn't worry about that. As far as the rest of spoiler season, let's see, this will probably get uploaded in the very wee hours of the morning on Friday night. I'm not sure how good my hotel's internet is, so if it takes forever to upload this, I wouldn't be surprised. But, it might be 3 o'clock in the morning on Friday before this is uploaded. But on Friday morning, sometime like 9, 10, 11 is usually when they do it, EST at least. The entire set will be spoiled. So as soon as I can get a video about that up, I will do that for you. Probably, hopefully Sunday night or Monday morning. But again, we'll see. There's a lot of issues regarding that. If there's any questions you guys have about any other cards I didn't talk about here, just let me know in the comment section. I'll try to be down there this time to answer any questions or anything like that. And if you guys just want to know how's it going, I'll be down there in the comment section to answer those questions too. But for now, I guess I gotta get out of here because I guess this video can't be an hour long. It'll take longer to upload. In any case, do all the things, like the video if you enjoyed the video. I'm really, really happy to be back. So do all the things. Share the video. You can check me out on Twitter at SBMTGDev. You can kick us a buck on Patreon, which would be really cool, at patreon.com/SBMTG. The AdSense dollars are going to be bad this month because I'm essentially missing an entire week of spoiler season, which, just full disclosure, is usually a great time for AdSense. But I'm going to be missing those dollars. So if you want to kick me a buck on Patreon, I'd be really, really happy with that. Just go to patreon.com/SPMTG and check all that out. And also check out my sponsor, TCG Player. They're helping me out right now too, a good bit. So check them out. I'll leave a link in the description. They've got pre-order prices already on like pretty much every card that's been spoiled. And that you can already pre-order Ixalan boxes for really cheap from them. So check them out. Leave a link in the description. Helping my sponsors, helping me too. So do all those things. And I think that I am done for now. I'm trying to make sure I'm not forgetting anything here, because I'm not sure how many videos I'm going to be able to upload in the next 3 or 4 days. So I just miss you guys. So do all the things, and I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Woo! Turn this sucker off.